Drawing trees in watercolors can be a delightful process, and today I will share with you step-by-step guide how to get started. Hi friends, I'm Alla. I'm a sketch illustrator and watercolorist, and from 2020 I'm an art teacher too. And I welcome you on my YouTube channel where I share tips how to work with watercolors, different art tutorials, and some beginner level exercises. This video is about how we paint different types of trees and how we create the greenery on the paper, and specifically in watercolors, how we recreate the light, how we recreate the shadows, and so on. So I propose you to jump in. For this exercise I will be using an A4 size paper because it is a perfect size that we can play around and to create some interesting trees that you will paint for sure in your future travel sketches. Let's jump in with mixing colors. Prepare your watercolor palette with various shades of green and brown. You can mix different greens for the foliage and browns for the trunk and branches. During this class, we want to use any pencil or eraser to sketch the outline of the trees. Usually in travel sketches we draw the trees first, but today I decided to go only with shapes and colors. I want to share with you how to go from different shapes and to represent the tree with only colors without preparing the drawing earlier. And I start with the branches first and the trunk for the tree. I used different browns. I mixed burnt sienna, I used olive brown, I used Mars brown, sepia, so use whatever brown colors you have. I'm lucky enough that I have on 36 colors palette, different bronze colors. I have very great palette of green colors, so I use different colors of this. For example, for green colors I use olive green here. If you don't have olive green, use whatever green you have and add a little bit of yellow color. And little by little with a big paintbrush I prepare the base color that it is much lighter. This color will represent the highlights on the trees. And first I create the bunch of leaves that it is like a bush, one close to another, and then I paint like small leaves outside of the tree. In this way we create the form of the foliage of the tree, and as well we create the foliage outside of the tree. Once we painted the base color of green, I will proceed with darker green. And usually when we have a very warm light in summertime, the greens that we apply for the highlights are usually warm in colors. And in the shadow we used cool greens. Here I used simple green from my palette. If you have a lighter green than mine, what you can do, you can add some blue color to recreate this foliage in a cooler form. And as well pay attention that I'm not going all over again on the tree, but I represent only the shadow on the trees. For example, at the upper side usually we have much more light, and I added some darker color, and I decided to remove it more because usually on the corona on the upper side of the tree it is much lighter, and then we have cooler side more closer to the trunk. And that's it, the tree is done. So if we analyze how I did the first tree, is that I just applied the main color like a spot of color and a little bit of foliage around. I painted the trunk using different brown colors and adding some green as well. And then on the last step I added cooler color of the green to represent the shadow and to represent the depth. And to make it more interesting, I added some branches on the tree with brown color. You can use the green color for branches because in real life the branches as well have green color, not always are brown. Let's move on with another type of tree, and here we don't have only one trunk, we have different trunks, but let's say the branches that we have of this tree, it is a sum of branches recreate the trunk itself. And first here I decided to go with branches because sometimes on the trees we have less foliage than on the first tree I represented. Usually we can see such trees that are that have 1 or 2 years as much, that have very few foliage, and usually this foliage is very light as well in color. For this I use as well olive green first, and I add foliage not all over the tree, but only in the spaces between the branches to recreate the feeling of this foliage. As well, pay attention that on this tree I don't have a spot of color, a big spot of color. It is more about smaller details, and the shadows are going straight below where it can be the shadow. So if we consider that the light is coming from the top, straight from the top, from the midday, then we will have the shadows below, always. And in this case, I just add very few shadow on this foliage, and as well the foliage can be very few of it can be dark enough. Usually when the trees are new, that have very few time, are growing, usually the foliage is much lighter. Moving on the next type of tree, and here I start again with the trunk like we did on the first tree. We use different colors of brown. I'm not mentioning the brown colors that I use, but you can use any warm color, cool color, whatever you have. And I will start with cooler colors of green, because different foliages have different colors obviously, and we have to consider this once we paint the trees. Pay attention the technique I use for painting this tree. I took a lot of color but very few water. When I feel that the paintbrush is filled with water, I remove slightly the water with a tissue and I apply different green colors. On this tree I apply cooler colors, more cooler colors, and usually I use turquoise blue, or if you want you can add any blue to your green color already. Apart from this, I will use a simple card to lift up the color. So look how I do it. If you have watched my video with textures, you probably know that I mentioned about this technique that we use on cascades usually. But as well we can create an interesting foliage of the trees when using the card by removing the color. Following along with the Christmas tree is also an interesting process to paint because it is a different form, different color from other trees, and usually the green colors that we have on the trees are very strong, very dark. This is why I started with dark green color. Still I use a warm color, but there are a lot of foliages for the Christmas trees that are cool enough, and we can perfectly use more blue color for the greenery than warm colors. Even though I proceed with the same idea that on the top we have warmer colors and below we have some cooler colors, and somewhere we have also highlight or lighting to create the colors darker. And I just repeat the form of the tree. I'm not painting in detail each of the branches or each of the details, just recreating the composition, the full form of the tree. Usually on travel sketches we won't paint trees in detail, only if the tree itself is not the protagonist of the work. Pay attention that also on this tree I applied different interesting techniques in watercolors. I applied the colors straight on the paper and I mixed the colors straight on the paper, and I added a warmer and cooler color in the same way, during the same process of painting. Moving on with the next tree, the same as for the first tree, I added the base color that it will be lighter. Usually it is about these kind of trees that you can find in the city that are coated off and have a specific form. These trees usually you have to consider when you paint these shadows, you have to consider like a sphere, and looking into the detail where the lighting is coming on and on the other side to paint the shadow, because usually in between the foliage you won't find too much darkness, because usually the main color is the same color for the whole tree, and the shadows depends only on the if there is any other tree around or how the sun is coming. My next tree is about palm tree, and in this palm tree I start with the trunk, and the trunk of the palm tree is very interesting. I invite you to analyze first before you paint any palm tree. The trunk is not straight because it is made of the foliage. It grows as a bush first, and then it transforms in the tree. And each of the foliage I will take care to represent in a branch and with leaves on it. As I did for the previous trees, I start with the main color and I use olive green first. You can use even yellow color if you don't have any greens like olive green. And only after it I will start to add some details and the darker color with green, with more darker green, with cooler green. You can add some blue color into it and add some details. The same as for the previous tree, I don't apply it all over. I apply only on certain places to create the depth. Many times when I paint the palm trees, not in this case, I use brown colors too. For example, here I used raw sienna, that it is more like ochre color. But in real life, when I paint sketches, I usually add even brown colors, because many times we have not only green palm trees, but also we have some brown that are dried. And it looks more natural and more interesting to the viewer eyes. And as well, depending on the time of the day, if it is a sunset, then you will see even some orange colors, some really beautiful, warm and different colors. Obviously now we paint the trees that are green when these are green during the time. But many times we can change the colors, like for example in autumn we will paint those in totally different foliage. And now I decided to go with a pine. And it is not about the tree, but I just represent how we paint the foliage. It depends. You can use this foliage for the Christmas tree or you can use for the palm trees, depending how which one of these you want to use and to paint. And painting the last tree for today, usually it is about these kind of trees that you paint as we did on the first tree on the second row, that usually these have a specific cut form. And the same as on that tree, we don't have everywhere the shadows, we have only somewhere. If for example the tree wasn't cut at its time, we will see different shading effects on it, even on the whole foliage. And if it is just recently cut, then we will find out that the shadows are more below on the tree. So just to make sure which trees you paint and how you paint. I hope you enjoyed the process of painting these trees with me. You have learned something new. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me. I will be happy to answer all of your questions. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, to like this video, and share with the beloved ones who you know that love to paint in watercolors. Thank you for watching, and till the next time, bye!